You know, in the vast, silent world of data, there are ghosts. These are echoes of information, lurking just beneath the surface. And today, we're gonna hunt one down.
Yeah, it's a pretty chilling thought, right? That the very systems we build to help us could actually turn around and betray our deepest secrets. And look, this isn't some sci-fi movie plot. This is a real, fundamental vulnerability in this new age of AI.
All right, so let's dive into this. I want you to picture a large language model, but don't think of it as just a program. Think of it more like a massive digital vault. I mean, it's been trained on an absolutely staggering amount of information. It's like a digital mirror of everything we know, and sometimes our private lives.
So what's actually in these vaults? Well, it's way more than just public information. We're talking about the raw material of our digital lives. Just think for a second about what that really includes. Honestly, the scope of the risk here is just staggering. We're talking about your personal info, names, addresses, your financial and health records. Then there's confidential business data, stuff that could literally make or break a company. And yeah, even the secret sauce, proprietary algorithms, and the actual source code that runs our digital world. All of it just potentially out there.
You know how it is. Every vault has a weak spot, right? A flaw. And in the world of these LLMs, that flaw, it's like an echo. It's an echo of all that private data it was trained on, just sitting there, waiting for the right trigger to make it speak.
And yeah, this vulnerability has a name. It's called sensitive information disclosure. Basically, it happens when the model is just doing its job and it accidentally spits out confidential details. This isn't just some minor bug, you guys. It's a wide open door to huge privacy violations and major security breaches.
So you're probably wondering, how does a machine learn to spill secrets? I mean, it's a fair question, right? The machine doesn't have any bad intentions. It doesn't want to betray anyone. So how does this even happen? How does that ghost get out of the code?
Well, it happens when somebody figures out how to listen for those echoes, or to be more precise, how to exploit them. And that's the moment we go from a simple flaw to an active attack. This is what we call the art of the breach.
Okay, so there are basically three main ways these secrets can get out. The first is a targeted attack. It's called prompt injection. This is where someone crafts these really clever questions to trick the model into breaking its own safety rules. Second, you've got unintentional exposure. This is what happens when the training data just wasn't cleaned up properly or sanitized, so sensitive details get left in by accident. And the third way? It's the simplest and maybe the scariest. Somebody just carelessly included private data in the training set right from the start.
And let's be super clear about this. This isn't some theory. This isn't a what if. This vulnerability has already been exploited out in the real world. It's a documented part of cybersecurity history.
A really famous example is the proof-pudding attack. It's a huge case. What happened was, by just carefully looking at the model's public answers, attackers were able to actually piece together the private data it was trained on. Think about that. They could basically reverse engineer the whole thing to pull secrets out, completely getting around the security controls that were supposed to keep that data safe.
But look, for every attack, there's always a defense. The system can absolutely fight back. And this is where we get into the lockdown protocol, a whole series of measures built to silence those echoes and really reinforce that digital vault.
It really is a constant cat and mouse game. For every single way an attacker can get in, there's a way to defend. So if they're trying to use prompt injection, you hit back with really strong input validation. If the big threat is leaky training data, then the defense is just being relentless about sanitizing and scrubbing that data before it ever even gets near the model.
So here's the defensive playbook. First up, sanitize all your inputs. Scrub them totally clean of anything sensitive before they hit the model. Number two, enforce super strict access controls. That just means people and systems only get to see the bare minimum data they need to do their job, nothing more. 3, you can add what's called statistical noise to the data. It's a technique called differential privacy, and it basically makes it impossible to pick out any one person's information from the crowd. And 4th, this is for the real top-level security, using advanced stuff like homomorphic encryption. This is seriously cool. It lets the model process data while it's still encrypted. That means the raw secret is never ever exposed.
But here's the thing. Technology by itself is never the complete answer. All the firewalls, all the encryption, yeah, they're powerful. But the single strongest part of any security system, it's not the code. It's you. It's the person sitting at the keyboard.
So what can you do about all this? It's pretty simple, but it is so critical. First, just be mindful. Try not to feed sensitive information into these systems to begin with. Second, be informed. Actually take a minute to understand the data policies for the services you're using. And third, feel empowered. You almost always have the right to opt out of letting them use your data for training, so use that right.
Because really, at the end of the day, security isn't just some tech problem for engineers to solve in a lab somewhere. It's a shared responsibility. It's about the conscious choices that all of us have to make every single day.
You know, this whole battle over our data, it's happening right now. It's happening in server racks and deep inside lines of code, totally invisible to most of us. But the stakes, our privacy, our security, our very digital identity. Believe me, those could not be more real.
And that leaves us with one last big question that kind of just hangs in the air. In this new world that we're all building together, a world that runs on code and on data, who's actually responsible for guarding the ghosts?